Did you know that the life expectancy of the average American is 77.28 years old? At the time of doing this video, I am 44. While I don't compare myself to the average person, I do realize that I'm at an age where health and longevity becomes more of an issue. Now, you might think that I'm hitting some midlife crisis and I'm going to start buying expensive cars or, just wearing expensive jewelry or anything like that to just boost up my status or to just chase those younger years, but I'm not doing any of that. What I am most concerned with right now is making sure that I live a long quality life where I'm able to play with my grandkids and hopefully maybe my great grandkids at some point. And aside from lifting, aside from eating a great diet, one of the ways I'm going to be making that happen is through my lungs. So between the ages of 30 to 50, we lose up to 15% of our lung capacity, and by age 80, we actually lose 30%. The biggest correlation between those who die in early death and those who live the longest is what we would call your VO2 max. Now, VO2 max is essentially how much oxygen you use when you perform strenuous tasks, but it also relates to how healthy your lungs are. And if you want a healthy set of lungs and if you want to live longer, then you want to build a healthy VO2 max. So this is something that I'm going to be focused on for the next year. And in this video, I want to share with you my entire plan to make it happen. And by the way, if you are new to this channel, my name is Dan Go. I help entrepreneurs and busy professionals get lean, boost energy, and live longer in a way that fits their lifestyles. Each week, I make videos that show you the exact strategies that we use to help our clients not only get into their best shape, but also live their longest lives. Now onto the video. Now, when it comes to raising your VO2 max, there are two effective ways at doing this. Now, the first way to improve your VO2 max is going to be something called Zone 2 cardio. Now, the main idea of Zone 2 cardio is that it's slow. It should feel like you would be able to do this for a very long period of time. One of the best examples I can use of Zone 2 cardio is doing a physical activity where you're just at the threshold where you're able to carry a conversation with another person. Now, Zone 2 is actually taken from this 5-zone training system for heart rate training, and it's otherwise known as low intensity training. So again, I'll reiterate that Zone 2 is it's really slow and it's done at a steady pace. And technically, if you're aiming for a heart rate, it's about 70% of your max heart rate while exercising. Now, to keep this entirely simple, this is the type of exercise where you can do it and you're just at the threshold where you're able to hold a conversation with another person. It should feel like work, but it also should feel like you can go on and do this forever. Now, it's recommended to get at least 120 minutes, ideally 180 minutes of Zone 2 cardio every single week, and here is exactly how I'm going to get that. So the very first thing that I'm doing and that I have done is get myself a treadmill desk. It's not necessarily a treadmill desk. I actually just bought a really small treadmill that fits underneath my standing desk. When I'm on meetings, when I'm watching videos, anytime that I have any sort of dead time, I am on the treadmill and I'm getting my steps in. And then I've actually found that at a pace of about 3.7 to 3.8, that is a pace where I'm able to barely have a conversation with someone while still getting these steps in and also doing Zone 2 cardio. Now, obviously, the other ways to get Zone 2 cardio are to go outside, to hit the pavement, to do some jogging or some walking, but one of the ways in which I'm actually approaching Zone 2 cardio is this thing called the MAF method. And the MAF method was created by this guy called Phil Maffetone. He's actually one of the most underrated researchers on the planet when it comes to this stuff. Highly recommend reading his articles. I'm actually going to have it linked to the description below. And it's essentially where you keep running at a heart rate that's beyond or actually underneath a certain threshold. And the way to find that number is to take your age and to minus it from 180, and then generally you want to be around that number. Now, there's a lot of factors that play into this, how much you weigh, a lot of things. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to link to the article below by Dr. Phil Maffetone. It's going to have all of the details on how to do the MAF method, and then this is the way in which I am going to be doing Zone 2 cardio for myself. Now, the second way to improve your VO2 max is going to be through something that is called the 4x4 interval training method. And out of all the ways to do high intensity interval training, this has been shown to have the best effect for VO2 max, but it is hard as shit. So what you're doing is you are getting 4 minutes of high intensity cardio done. And then after the 4 minutes are done, you're gonna have 3 minutes where you're gonna be at a gentle walking / jogging pace, and then you're doing this for about 8 rounds total. And I'm not gonna lie, like when I did this the very first time, I almost felt like I had to puke, and probably I was just like going too hard and pushing myself way too hard for doing it the first time. But one of the things that you have to understand is that when we are trying to raise our VO2 max, it's not enough to just get a gentle source of cardio through like zone 2. You actually have to challenge your heart to push it past its comfort levels. And that's what the 4x4 method does. Again, it's not easy. It's probably going to be one of the toughest things that you will ever do. And just because I'm starting with 4x4s, one thing that I'm going to be aiming to do is, just like my workouts, I'm going to be tracking my pace when I'm doing these 4x4s. I'm going to be tracking the incline that I'm using. I'm going to be tracking the speed that I'm using. And every single week, I'm just going to try to like eke it up. I'm going to be using progressive overload to just try to challenge myself just a little bit harder than before. And when it comes to this type of training, I'm going to be doing this once a week in addition to zone 2 training and weight training. Now, lastly, how do I know if I am even improving my VO2 max in the first place? So we need a way to measure our progress. Now, the best way to do that is to hook yourself up to a laboratory, to hook yourself up to get like this thing that looks like a gas mask on you, and to do intervals. And they will literally measure your VO2 max using the methods that I just talked about right now, especially the high intensity interval training methods. That's the best way to do it, but unfortunately I live in a very small town that doesn't have access to those type of things. So the next best way to test it is something that is called a Cooper test. And the Cooper test is really simple. It requires you to run or walk as far as possible in 12 minutes. You would most likely want to do this on a track. And the objective of this test is to measure the maximum distance that you cover during these 12 minutes. And one thing that you do when you measure how much your distance is, you will present it and compare it to this chart. And then based on your age, you want to be in the good to excellent range. Now, the only downside to the Cooper test is that if you're over like 60 years old, unfortunately, they don't really have measures for people who are over 60. So just keep that in mind. So to summarize this, zone 2 cardio, that's going to be done for about 180 minutes per day. It's going to be done through using my treadmill desk, going outside for walks, but just generally just moving on a regular basis, making sure that I get my 10K steps. And I know that that's not necessarily the most exact way to do it, but I find that whenever someone has a habit of walking 2 to 3 miles a day, that's probably one of the best things that you can do for your longevity. And the second way is going to be doing the 4x4 method. I'm going to be doing that once a week. I'm going to be torturing myself on a treadmill, going to be panting, going to be sweating. It's not going to look pretty, and I'm glad that I don't have videos that actually show me going through this particular test, because literally I just don't look the best when I'm doing it. I look like a ragged, haggard old man trying to complete this 4x4. And above all else, like the key to all of these is just consistency. Now, the reason I chose these strategies for raising my VO2 max is because number one, they're effective, but number two, that's also what I can do on a consistent basis. I optimize more so for consistency than optimizing for optimizing. And yes, I guess you could say that I can get more like optimal with the way I'm doing things, but I'm really more focused on doing activities I know that I can perform on a regular basis that have little effect on my schedule. And one of the other things that I'm going to mention is that aside from living longer, aside from the whole idea of like raising your VO2 max, so one of the things I want to mention is that doing these types of activities give you massive benefits beyond the probability of living longer or raising your VO2 max. Better lungs means better performance. I know it's short, it's a very small sample size, but I've been doing this for about 2 weeks, and I've noticed a massive difference in my mood and also in my energy levels. And also, when you're lifting, there is a cardiovascular component to it, whether you like it or not. I found that my muscular endurance has increased a little bit as a result of improving my lung capacity. And also, like whenever you're doing cardio in general, what you're doing is you're just sending more capillaries down to the blood vessels, so you can actually lift a little bit longer, you can endure pain a little bit more, and just in general, it's just a net positive to have cardio in your life. I'm not just doing this because I want to live to 100. I want those years to actually have as much quality in them as humanly possible. So if that's something that you want in your life, I recommend just stealing what I just presented to you and giving it a try. If this is something where you feel is like a weak part in your life, such as me, you know, I know that I've been kind of neglecting the cardio side, then definitely bring this in. It's just going to make your life so much better as a result of doing it. And that's about it. One thing I will also mention is that, you know, a lot of times intent matters when you're doing workouts. So having the intent to raise VO2 max and to do cardio in a way that increases your lung capacity, that makes you healthier, I just find that it's way better to do that than to do cardio with the intent of trying to burn fat, which you're probably not doing as much of in the first place. So take that for what it is. So anyways, that's the end of the video. If you got value out of this, please like. It's going to help the algorithm. I'm going to do my cardio sessions right now, and I will see you on the next video. Peace.